I had a wonderful conversation with Betsy Markey. I don't know if Betsy's around here. There she is right there. Betsy's in a tough district. The biggest newspaper is somewhat conservative, as Betsy described. They weren't real happy with health care reform. They were opposed to it. Betsy, despite the pressure, announced that she was in favor of this bill. And lo and behold, the next day, that same newspaper runs an editorial saying, you know what, we've considered this, we've looked at the legislation, and we actually are pleased that Congresswoman Markey is supporting the legislation. When I see John Bacheri here stand up, proud, with a whole bunch of his constituencies, in as tough a district as there is, and stand up with a bunch of folks from his district with pre-existing conditions and saying, you know, I don't know what is going on in Washington, but I know what's going on with these families. I look at him with pride. Now, I can't guarantee that this is good politics. Every one of you know your districts better than I do. You talk to folks, you're under enormous pressure, you're getting robocalls, you're getting emails that are tying up the communication system. I know the pressure you're under. I get a few comments made about me. I don't know if you notice. I've been in your shoes. I know what it's like to take a tough vote. But what did Lincoln say? I am not bound to win, but I'm bound to be true. 2 generations ago, folks who were sitting in your position, they made a decision. We are going to make sure that seniors and the poor have health care coverage that they can count on. And they did the right thing. And I'm sure at the time they were making that vote, they weren't sure how the politics were either, any more than the people who made the decision to make sure that Social Security was in place knew how the politics would play out, or folks who passed the Civil Rights Acts knew how the politics were going to play out. They were not bound to win, but they were bound to be true. And now we've got middle-class Americans, don't have Medicare, don't have Medicaid, watching the employer-based system fray along the edges, or being caught in terrible situations. And the question is, are we going to be true to them? You know, sometimes I think about how I got involved in politics. I didn't think of myself as a potential politician when I got out of college. I went to work in neighborhoods, working with Catholic churches in poor neighborhoods in Chicago, trying to figure out how people could get a little bit of help. And I was skeptical about politics and politicians, just like a lot of Americans are skeptical about politics and politicians right now. Because my working assumption was, you know, when push comes to shove, all too often, folks in elected office, they're looking out for themselves and not looking out for the folks who put them there. That there are too many compromises, that the special interests have too much power. They just got too much clout. There's too much big money washing around. And I decided finally to get involved because I realized if I wasn't willing to step up and be true to the things I believe in, then the system wouldn't change. Every single one of you had that same kind of moment at the beginning of your careers. Maybe it was just listening to stories in your neighborhood about what was happening to people who had been laid off of work. Maybe it was your own family experience. Somebody got sick and didn't have health care, and you said, something should change. Something inspired you to get involved. And something inspired you to be a Democrat instead of running as a Republican, because somewhere deep in your heart you said to yourself, I believe in an America in which we don't just look out for ourselves, that we don't just tell people you're on your own, that we are proud of our individualism, we are proud of our liberty, but we also have a sense of neighborliness and a sense of community. And we are willing to look out for one another and help people who are vulnerable and help people who are down on their luck and give them a pathway to success and give them a ladder into the middle class. That's why you decided to run. And now a lot of us have been here a while. And everybody here has taken their lumps and their bruises. And it turns out people have had to make compromises. And you've been away from families for a long time, and you've missed special events for your kids sometimes. And maybe there have been times where you asked yourself, why'd I ever get involved in politics in the first place? And maybe things can't change after all. And when you do something courageous, it turns out sometimes you may be attacked. And sometimes the very people you thought you were trying to help may be angry at you and shout at you. And you say to yourself, maybe that thing that I started with has been lost. But you know what? Every once in a while, a moment comes where you have a chance to vindicate all those best hopes that you had about yourself, about this country, where you have a chance to make good on those promises that you made in all those town meetings and all those constituency breakfasts and all that traveling through the district, all those people who you looked in the eye and you said, you know what, you're right. System's not working for you, and I'm going to make it a little bit better. And this is one of those moments. This is one of those times where you can honestly say to yourself, doggone it, this is exactly why I came here. This is why I got into politics. This is why I got into public service. This is why I've made those sacrifices, because I believe so deeply in this country, and I believe so deeply in this democracy, and I'm willing to stand up even when it's hard. Even when it's tough. Every single one of you have made that promise, not just to your constituents, but to yourself. And this is the time to make true on that promise. We are not bound to win, but we are bound to be true. We are not bound to succeed, but we are bound to let whatever light we have shine. We have been debating health care for decades. It has now been debated for a year. It is in your hands. It is time to pass health care reform for America, and I am confident that you are going to do it tomorrow. Thank you very much, House of Representatives. Let's get this done.